If you don't have a job, you probably can't pay the bills. You certainly are not getting a loan and buying a property. And forget about investing. In fact, you could be even forced to sell your property at some point in the future. In this video, the first of its kind, I'm going to rank every single jobs market in Australia against each other and give you a very simple metric to work out which jobs market is performing well today and in the years ahead. It's going to give you clues as to where to buy your next investment property and where you might want to consider selling. And guess what? This analysis brings with it a huge surprise. One of Australia's best performing capital cities is going from boomtown in its job market to cracks starting to appear, and that surprise could mean it's time to get out of that market. So before I start ranking each state against each other, let me tell you exactly how I'm doing it. To come up with this ranking system, I'm using the monthly ABS labor force data. That is our jobs scorecard that comes out every month and some data that comes out every quarter directly from the ABS itself. Specifically, I'm going to be ranking things like employment growth, how many jobs are being created every month. The more jobs that are created, the more people that are going to have higher incomes, have incomes, and start buying houses. I'm going to be looking at unemployment rates, of course, youth unemployment, because that tells you whether the jobs market is going well when the young kids of that state are getting a job when they graduate from uni. And finally, I'm going to look at lead data sources too. Not what's happening right now, but what are businesses thinking about in the years ahead with their hiring intentions? And I'm going to synthesize all of these data metrics and give it to you simply with a ranking against each other that helps you understand how it all works. Okay, so let's start with New South Wales, our country's biggest state, biggest employer, Sydney obviously dominating it. So what you can see here is employment growth is pretty strong in New South Wales. Despite these high interest rates, you've got employment growth at roughly 2%. It is below the national average at 2.7%, but you'd expect that. New South Wales is a highly interest rate sensitive economy and it's still growing its jobs despite these really high interest rates. So that is a testament to the New South Wales economy and the strength of the economy that it can continue generating jobs every single month, even in very restrictive interest rate settings. So that is one positive for New South Wales with this many jobs created every single month. This number has actually improved a little bit in the latest ABS monthly report card, with New South Wales doing very, very well in the latest month that has just come out. In fact, we've got unemployment down to 3.8% in New South Wales, a very, very low rate of unemployment, well below the national average of 4.1%. Sydney is driving the charge with employment growth. A little bit of a shock there. Sydney doing so well in employment at a time where interest rates are really, really high. We also have the participation rate rising a little bit year on year. Not much, from 66.1 to 66.2, but this does show that more people in New South Wales are actually deciding, hey, I want to start working or I want to look for a job. It's not unemployment rates going up. It's not a story of negativity at all. It's actually a really positive story overall. And you can see it in this employment growth chart, in the unemployment charts here as well. There's a whole range of data here that suggests New South Wales is doing pretty well. On the lead indicating data, the online job advertisements, you can see that in the most recent month, it's been really, really good. There's been this little uptick that you can see here. This is a national uptick. It's starting to suggest that we might be getting through this high interest rate environment okay with this slight little increase in online job ads. So job ads is a measurement of when businesses go out there and put an advertisement out on Seek, it probably means that they're looking for someone to work there. And that is what they're measuring here. And we've obviously had a 20% decrease in the year. You'd expect that with the employment market weakening a little bit. But in the latest month, it's increased 5.5%. So there's some early signs of positive direction there as well. When you break down what sectors are doing really well, healthcare and social assistance, big increase in employment numbers here. But the one that really sticks out here, and this is really, really important for New South Wales, is retail trade. Down from roughly 10% of all employment a year ago, down to about 9% today. That's a 40 to 50,000 people job loss in the retail sector. And yes, that appears in all of the retail data. Households are spending less money because interest rates are high. And you're getting that being fed through into the employment market in the retail sector with 40,000 odd jobs lost in the retail market despite employment growing overall. So this is really, really interesting because it does rank New South Wales quite poorly and drags New South Wales back, but it can change. Next year, everyone is predicting rate cuts, 4 or 5 of them in fact. That's going to completely change the household. People are going to start spending money again. You're going to get an extra $50, a couple $100, depends on the size of your mortgage. More money is going to be thrown into the economy, and New South Wales have higher mortgage balances and they're going to start spending more. And this retail trade figure, that's going to go into reverse and it's going to start adding jobs, amongst other things like construction and other areas. New South Wales is going to do the best from these rate changes that kick in the years ahead. And it's already ranking pretty well. So on this chart ranking, I'm giving it the big reveal, the first one, New South Wales comes in at number 5. This probably tells you a little bit about Australia. There's 4 states doing better than this. That's pretty good news. So ranked New South Wales at number 5. Okay, so number 2, we have the ACT. My first job as a graduate in the ACT at the Treasury. What a place that was. Looking at charts like this, let's get into the ACT. And ACT is doing surprisingly well. In the latest month, it's shot its lights out with its unemployment rate going from 3.9% to 3.4%. I had to quickly check, is that even right? 3.4% in the ACT? They're shooting the lights out on unemployment. No one's ever unemployed in the ACT. I've got a little secret reason for that though. If you get unemployed in Canberra, quite often my mates, if they lost their job at Treasury, they would go back to their home state and not stay there. It's a bit of a fly-in, fly-out place. There's a lot of people who aren't from there that go there for work. So when you become unemployed, you move over to wherever you are. You often go back to your parents' house and be like, can I go live in your garage, please? Because you've got to pay for things. So that's probably part of the reason why unemployment rates in the ACT are lower than the rest of the country. 3.4%, but trending in a pretty good direction. A year ago, it was 3.2%, and it's 3.4% today. So not much change there at all. You can see the employment growth chart. Employment growth at 0.8%, but not very high. But you can see it here that it's increasing as well, which is really, really positive. Job ads have come down 24%. That's a pretty big drop off in job ads, but a 6% increase in the last month as well. This story is national. The increase in employment, the increase in job ads, the increase in the decrease in the number of vacancies in the lead data, it's starting to show that, hey, actually, we may be employing people again. Don't know why, but we're doing quite well in terms of the economy, in terms of job creation. That's what the early data is starting to suggest. ACT also has a really, really interesting stat that I found here is the percentage of jobs, obviously public administration and safety, so these are public servants, make up a huge chunk, gone from 28.2% to 30%. That's a big increase in the space of a year. 1.8% of people in the ACT are now moving towards the public sector. So the public sector are hiring. They're hiring, and they're hiring big because the unemployment rate's so low, employment growth is positive. It's not really a story that gets that much attention, but it looks like people in Canberra are feeling pretty good right now. So that could filter through to the housing market pretty soon. I've got the ACT here in at number 3. It would have been higher given they have the lowest unemployment rates in Australia, but you've got to contextualize this a little bit with that story I just told about people moving away from Canberra if they lost their job. Okay, so number 3, let's go into the second biggest state, Victoria. What does Victoria tell us? What does the data tell us? My main takeout from looking at Victoria is it's better than what everyone is making out to be. You pick up the news, you look any media article, you read a bunch of YouTube videos, you have Dan Andrews causing this economy to suck, we hate him, this sucks, Melbourne, sucks. Maybe I'm talking to property investors and property investors don't like land taxes. I don't really know, but that's kind of a narrative that's out there. But it's not in the data. It's actually getting better and better. So let's go take a look at this. We've got an unemployment increase. Yes, this is the scary one. In Victoria, the number of people unemployed has increased by about 30% in the last year, double the national average. So that is the big drain on Victoria. But when it comes to jobs and housing, you want to see employment growth. And Victoria is creating jobs. It's creating a lot of jobs. Look at this chart. It's out of this world, up 3.6% in a year, and even more once you factor in the September data that's come through too. So really, really positive information here, much better than what people are making it out to be like. That was my main takeout here. Unemployment rate at 4.6%, but it's got a higher participation rate than other states. So that means that more people are feeling confident and choosing to go into the jobs market in Victoria, and that's pushing up their unemployment rate. The reason why their unemployment rate is going up isn't because people are losing their jobs, it's more people are deciding to go into the workforce. Think of, stay-at-home mums and dads that are like, hey, look, should I stay at home or should I not work and do some other things that I want to do, or should I go and get a job because the job market's pretty good and I find it pretty easy. That's what's happening in Victoria. The job market's so good, more and more people who were sitting on the sidelines are saying, you know what, I want to participate. And that's what's driving up the unemployment rate. They begin on job seeker payments and that feeds through into the unemployment line, and then they slowly get into employment, and that is how the transmission mechanism works in the jobs market. Participation rates going up is a good telltale sign of how people are feeling in that economy. So despite me saying Victoria is doing better than everyone's expecting, I'm still ranking it in at number 6. That's largely because of its higher unemployment rate versus other areas. The job ads are down a lot, 25%, and vacancies are a lot lower than they were before. So when you combine all of that, you start being like, okay, it's doing better than what they're making it out to sound like, but it's still number 6 in Australia. I do think that Victoria and New South Wales, if I do this video again in 6 months' time, yes, I'll do it again. I'm going to make an early prediction that this time next year, if I do the same video, New South Wales and Victoria may be number 1 and number 2, perhaps 2 and 3. They're going to be rising up the rankings because rate cuts are going to really help the Victorian economy as well. And that's something to really pay attention to. If this is the now, what does the future look like? As a housing investor, that's something you really want to pay attention to. Okay, so let's get into Queensland and look at what the data's saying there. In Queensland, we have some really positive numbers. Employment growth, 4.2%. That's rocking. Unemployment, the change in unemployment numbers, so the increase in unemployment, it's half the Australian average. The unemployment rate at 4.2%. The participation rate up a full percentage point inside a year. Wow, this must be one of the highest participation rates Queensland has ever seen. People are feeling confident there. Youth unemployment well below Australia's national average too. And in this employment growth line, you can see this big employment growth figure with Queensland driving up Australia's employment growth too. In terms of job ads, this one's really positive. It's increased in the last month by 3%, but also the annual change in job ads is down 8%. Versus Australia is down around 20%. So doing much better than Australia here. Putting this all together, I can only conclude that Queensland has come in at number 1, the best jobs market in Australia. It is real. There's a lot of information here that suggests that that employment growth figure is so positive that I'm putting it in at number 1. Okay, let's get into Tasmania. In Tasmania, we've gone through the detail here and it's not that pretty. Employment growth negative. That is, in Tasmania, they're shedding jobs. More people are in the country, but people are losing their jobs or they're just not creating them. If someone's being let go, that job is not being replaced. Employment growth is going backwards. That is a sort of ugly situation to be in, and it does make it pretty poor. The unemployment rate in Tasmania going up a lot, to 4.4%. The number of people unemployed has really not changed very much, but the participation rate has dropped down dramatically. That's a little bit ugly, where employment growth is really down and those people aren't even going into the unemployment line. They're just saying, nah, I don't want to participate anymore. They're feeling a bit disillusioned in terms of the data here. Youth unemployment rates well above the Australian average as well. So there's some concerning figures here, and you can see this spread in the employment between Australia and Tasmania. Tasmania lagging behind while Australia is doing pretty well. So looking at it, it's pretty clear. Tasmania is number 8, coming in last. Okay, on to South Australia. See, this capital has been outperforming just about every other capital except WA over recent years. It's gone through a mega property boom on the back of really strong employment. But look what's happening now. You have employment growth negative in South Australia. Again, another state that is shedding jobs. Over the course of the year, more people, more jobs have gone than have been created. That is so strange. This gap is appearing between employment growth in Australia and South Australia. The unemployment change is starting to rise, and that participation rate has come crashing down as well in South Australia. Really, really concerning numbers. That unemployment rate will continue to trend up as more and more people go and enter the unemployment line from losing their jobs to begin with. And the lead data here suggests a 5% drop in job ads, which I would have expected to see a bigger drop in job ads here, but nonetheless, there's a bit of a drop in job ads that have happened. It's a pretty small sample size in South Australia. It's 900 odd jobs on Seek in total across every sector and every industry. And you've got youth unemployment remaining largely the same. So the main characteristic here for my ranking system is employment growth. And South Australia's employment growth is negative. So I'm going to rank it number 7, just in front of Hobart, despite having some positive factors to it. So this raises a really big question for South Australian property investors and anyone who has bought or owned a home there or is thinking of buying there. And a lot of buyers agents are still buying in South Australia. If this trend continues and jobs continue to be shed, then the South Australian property boom, that's over. It's just not appearing in the data yet, but it doesn't matter if they have a housing shortage. If people start losing their jobs, population growth rates will start coming down, people will stop going there, and people will start leaving South Australia to go find a job somewhere else in the country, and that will continue to accelerate. And that housing demand that's been so strong, that will drop off, and that will help alleviate some of the pressures in the housing market. So this is something to look at and a huge surprise in the data that I found here. Okay, next we have Northern Territory. Northern Territory was also a surprise, but on the positive side. Every time I look at Northern Territory data, I'm like, there's a lot going for it. I'm surprised not more people are talking about it when it comes to its economy, at least. Unemployment rate at 4.2%, down from 5% a year ago. And this is some of the lowest unemployment rates in Northern Territory in its history. I've gone through a 10-year chart and I'm like, wow, Northern Territory is doing really, really well on its employment growth. Employment growth at 2.1%, pretty good in this market, in this economy. The number of people unemployed in Northern Territory has actually gone backwards. That means less people are unemployed, which is the complete reverse of Australia. I've got to look at this data a little bit clearly because it's the only state that's negative. Less people unemployed a year after in August 2024 versus August 2023. It's shooting its lights out on its economy. The number of job ads really, really good as well, down 10% for the year, but better than the Australian average as well. So there's a lot of positive factors coming in here. Youth unemployment going from 11% to below 10% as well. So Northern Territory has a lot of positive factors there. And surprisingly, I'm ranking in at number 4, ahead of New South Wales, ahead of Victoria, and just behind a couple of the other states that we've gone through. Northern Territory is something to pay attention to. Finally, we have the state that everyone wants to talk about. We've got WA. And WA, my God, you are doing very, very well, and you are completely justified in having the nation's leading property market. The jobs market is on a tear. It's been on a tear for a number of years, and it's now here in the data. It's still there. You've got it here. Employment growth at 3.1%, stronger than the Australian average. Unemployment rates down to 3.6%, a very, very low unemployment rate, very solid employment growth. Job ads down 15%, roughly the Australian average, but vacancies are okay too. I had to really think about this, whether I give it number 1 or number 2. But Queensland and WA are leading the way. I've ranked it in at number 2, but you could easily flip that around. I'm prioritizing employment growth to housing demand a little bit more than unemployment rates, and digging a little bit deeper into that unemployment rate. I think Queensland may come down rather than continue to go up, while WA may continue go up a little bit and they'll go equalize. And once they do, if they do, then WA should be number 2. So you've got 2 really strong performers, Queensland, WA, ACT also doing really well. Then you've got New South Wales and Victoria coming in there. And that's where it starts getting a little bit confusing. From there onwards, South Australia coming in very, very low. A big drop off from Victoria down to South Australia, and then you've got Tasmania lagging in behind. So there's a lot of information here, but this ranking system gives you the clues as to where you might want to look, and it will change. This is as of right now. factor in interest rate cuts and the change in sectors and job creation over the year ahead, New South Wales and Victoria will go up the rankings. Queensland and WA will start to come down. This is a normal part of the economic cycle, but it gives you clues as to where to invest and where to sell. My big tip looking at this is if you own in South Australia and if it keeps pointing out negative signals for the next 3 months, I'd be a bit wary and may consider selling my investment property and getting out before there's a bigger problem that begins to appear. If you want my full thoughts on the South Australian economy, the WA economy, or any other economy in Australia, drop a comment below and tell me exactly what you'd want me to look at. And if you can, hit that subscribe button and that bell notification, and I really appreciate it. See you on the next one.